want to start off by saying that everything told here is true. None of it was made up. I'm not a scary story writer or anything. I just need to share this experience, and I'm afraid of how the people around me would react. My girlfriend and I like to use recreational drugs sometimes. They're called research chemicals. On Friday, July 29th, 2022, we used some uppers. The ones we used give you a rush of energy, but have no psychedelic or hallucination-inducing effects. We had a great time and slept it off the next day, both of us waking up late in the afternoon. We had a good breakfast, then Netflixed and chilled for a while. My girlfriend lives in a studio apartment and has pet rats, so we can't smoke inside because they have sensitive lungs. The building she lives in has a public balcony, which was where we went out to smoke about every hour or so. It's a small balcony on the second floor, with wood railings and a stone floor overlooking the neighborhood. The building's rule is that nobody is allowed on the balcony after 10 p.m. We couldn't give two shits about that rule, and neither does anybody else, so we'd smoke there in the evenings as well. It was a Saturday night, July 30th, that we went for a smoke outside again. It must have been midnight. We were reminiscing about the day before. About halfway through our cigarettes, I suddenly heard a weird noise very far in the background. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, and since we were having a conversation, I tried to ignore it. It stopped after a couple of seconds. I noticed it stopped, but paid no mind. When our cigarettes were done, we were still just standing on the balcony talking, when I suddenly heard the sound again, and immediately asked my girlfriend to be quiet. "Why?" she asked. I responded by shushing her, as I was listening hard to what that sound was. Since it was now quiet, I was able to hear it more clearly. After a few seconds, I realized what I was hearing, and I felt a cold chill running down my spine like my soul got sucked down through the floor. My whole face went pale. "I hear a woman screaming," I said. My girlfriend laughed at first, and jokingly asked if I was high on something. I told her to be quiet for a second and really listen. She noticed how dead serious I was, and she turned her ear towards the end of the balcony. As she heard it, I saw her face turn just as pale. "That is a woman screaming," she said. Our first thoughts were that we had taken some really bad drugs and had some kind of weird shared psychosis after effect. We immediately checked if we had any symptoms of overdosing or after effects. No sweats, no high heart rate, no fatigue, no crazy thoughts. Both of us were able to think and talk clearly. We concluded that the sound of a woman screaming was real. The reason this struck us so was because it wasn't a normal kind of scream. It wasn't somebody getting scared, or mugged, or worse. This scream was different. It echoed. It carried a sense of hopelessness in its tone. It sounded vague and far away, like it was carried to us by the winds. The scream sounded like somebody screaming their soul out of their body and into the sky. Both of us were nailed to the floor as we kept listening in silence. We heard some loud-ass teenagers cycling home and screaming at each other. Both of us could finally breathe again. "Well, that was the logical conclusion. Just some loud teenagers," my girlfriend said. I initially agreed, but when they were far beyond what we could hear, the screams came back again, and it sounded even more desperate now. I did not hesitate and immediately called emergency services. I explained to them what we had heard and how it had affected us. They told us they were sending a police car over. We were outside in the parking lot near the main entrance, waiting for them. We could still hear the faraway screams. They finally arrived at 1:45. 2 officers, one male and one female, introduced themselves and asked us to explain in detail what we experienced. We told them exactly what we heard and where we heard it from. The male officer didn't take it too seriously and tried to ease out of it by saying it was probably just mating frogs. Apparently, they make a scream-like sound when mating. The female officer, though, took us more seriously and stood with us listening. And very faintly, like whoever was screaming was running out of energy and time, we heard her again. Luckily, so did the female officer. She immediately contacted the station and they set out a search and rescue. We were thanked for reporting the incident, and they left. For me, it wasn't done yet though. We sat back down on the balcony and kept listening. As we were sitting there, the night sky turned a pulsating blue from all the police cars driving around trying to find this screaming woman. We sat there just listening to the continued screaming, hoping it would stop when they found her. Must have been about 20 minutes later, almost 1:30, that the screams finally stopped. My hopes were that the police had found her and she was safe. But deep down, I had a feeling that she wasn't. That Wednesday, I was at my mother's house for dinner. She lives in the same town as I do. During dinner, I told her what we had experienced and how frightening it all was. My mother stood up without saying a word, walked over to the living room, grabbed that day's paper, and handed it over to me. "Woman found dead under fallen tree," the headline read. I was shocked. I felt my eyes filling up with tears and said with a shaky voice, "I heard this woman die." Against my better judgment, I kept reading. The 47-year-old woman was on a midnight walk in the woods last Saturday night when a tree fell over and crushed her legs. Local authorities believe the woman may have survived for several hours before succumbing to her injuries. She had been dead for almost 72 hours before she was found. The police refused to share further details as to her identity or passing. There was more in the article, but I could not and refused to read it through my tears. I did not have it in me to share this with my girlfriend out of fear of how she would take it. But that's not the most disturbing part of all this. I live alone, and sometimes when I'm in bed and can't sleep, at midnight, I can still hear her screaming. Sometimes my doorbell rings in the middle of the night, but when I go to check, there's never anybody there. I had a camera doorbell installed, and the only thing I caught on the camera was the sound of my doorbell ringing. Sometimes I hear a weird knocking sound like somebody is banging on wood. Stuff in my house seems to relocate on itself, such as clothing, food, and tools. My fridge door sometimes opens by itself. Whenever I look at my kitchen door, it feels like something is watching me. My cat Robin seems to stare at nothing in corners, and sometimes even gets a big tail and starts hissing at these empty corners. Ever since all that happened, my TV has this weird thing where it turns itself back on after I turn it off. It's only when I take the plug out of the socket that it stays off. All these things seem to only happen between midnight and 1:30. The most horrible thing I can still hear is her screaming when it's silent all around me. I called my doctor about this because I thought I was going insane. She referred me to a team of therapists. After countless hours of talks and sessions, they confirmed that I wasn't suffering from any form of delusion, hallucinations, psychosis, or any other mental illness that could cause me to experience all this. But I still do. She still screams at me. On January 2nd, 2023, I heard her screaming and banging again. When I went to bed and shut the lights off, I kept having this feeling like someone was standing next to my bed, watching me. And so I decided today, January 3rd, that I should write down this experience and share it in the hopes that she may find some rest in the knowledge that she won't be forgotten. Since we never got a name, I simply call her the Screaming Woman. May she rest in peace. I live in a relatively safe city in Scotland, but I have had several really odd/scary encounters since I moved here 4 years ago. I have been immersed in the subreddit for years before even creating an account. And to be honest, I learned a lot from all the posts I've read over the years. So I have this Let's Not Meet subreddit to thank for my quick thinking. I'm a short 29-year-old woman and work in a pub, so I often get out of work quite late. The weekends are even later, and I usually head home around 2 a.m. I never wear my headphones when going home at night, so this particular night was no different than usual. The alarm was set, doors locked and checked. I said goodbye to my colleague, and then we went our separate ways to get home. I usually cross a grocery store car park to get home, which is well lit, and that night something struck me as odd. There were a couple of cars parked there, which is normal, but something just felt off. I looked over my shoulder and noticed a guy in a hat walking a distance behind me. This in itself wasn't weird, but I decided to keep an eye on him nonetheless. I exited the car park to the main road that I lived off, but still had a good mile or so to go before I reached my flat. I checked over my shoulder again, and sure enough, this guy was walking in the same direction as I was. The distance between us was starting to close, so I decided to cross the road, which I usually did at this point anyway. Looking over my shoulder, I was able to not only look for traffic coming, but I was also able to keep an eye on him. I crossed the road and didn't bother to look back for a few minutes, assuming he had stayed on the other side. But I began to hear footsteps approaching. I glanced over my shoulder and saw this guy was about 20 feet behind me. I had a soft drink in a glass bottle in my bag, and, figuring I was overreacting, but better safe than sorry, I stuck my hand into my bag and gripped the bottle. Another 45 seconds, and this guy was close enough to me to touch me, but he slows to my pace and says, "Hello, how are you?" I ignored him and didn't respond. I long ago gave up on pretenses of being polite if I felt uncomfortable. A stranger's feelings matter less than my feeling of safety in any given situation. But he persisted in talking to me. "Hi, are you going to work?" "No," I replied. I was being short with him. "Are you going home?" "Yes," I said coldly. "Do you live in this direction?" I just looked at him. He tried again. "Do you live off of this road? Where do you live? Do you live close by?" I didn't respond and slowed my pace, letting him walk on. I was still gripping the glass bottle, ready to hit him with it should he try anything. He tried to slow down so I could catch up with him, but I slowed down so much that I was barely walking. He was maybe 300 yards away at this point and simply stopped and turned around, watching me and waiting for me to catch up with him. I reached into my pocket with my free hand and tried my phone. Of course, my phone was dead. I figured it would be the last walk home, but the dodgy battery had other ideas. Surprisingly, though, I wasn't afraid. He had started walking again, but still quite slowly. He looked over his shoulder again after another minute, and I seized the opportunity. There was a path to a block of flats that was obscured by tall hedges, so I leapt behind them. I waited for nearly 10 minutes, never letting go of that bottle the whole time. I peeked around the hedges to make sure he was there. I peeked behind the bins and bus stops to make sure he wasn't hiding in wait. But as far as I could tell, I had lost him. Maybe he didn't mean anything by this. But if you suspect a woman is afraid of you, and she is walking alone at night, don't speak to her. It will not help. Especially don't ask her where she lives repeatedly. I was not drunk, and I didn't appear to be drunk or in need of any help. I was simply walking home as I ordinarily would. I am, however, inclined to believe he had bad intentions. I would rather be too cautious than not, and this subreddit has definitely taught me how to do that. So, creepy dude who seemed to be following me home, fuck off, and let's never meet.